Okay, I started the recording. Welcome to SIG-Windows. It's December 13th. This is a CNCF project, and so we follow CNCF guidelines. That boils down to being nice to everyone. If you have any concerns or questions, you can reach out to any of the leads or the CNCF code of conduct. And otherwise, welcome everyone. I think everybody said they're waiting for vacation, so looking forward to that. Want to kick it off here. So 126 got released earlier this week. That also means that host process containers went to stable. You do need containerd 1.7 for some of the latest features, but and the Kubernetes API went stable. So we had a blog post that should go live sometime today. So keep an eye out for that and retweet it if you see it or reshare it. Thanks for everybody's support and help there. We also, 122 reached end of life. I think they did one last patch release this week, but then from there on out, there's going to be no more patch releases. So we removed it from our dashboards, our test grid dashboards this week, earlier on Monday, I think. Another announcement is we are canceling SIG-Windows for the next 2 weeks. I think most of the SIGs are doing that for the holidays. So we will not have SIG-Windows next week or the week after that. And so we'll see you all in the new year. And then I think the other big announcement is enhancement freeze for 127 is tentatively for February 9th. So we have a little bit of time once we get back, but make sure you're thinking about that. Does anybody have anything that they want to be getting in for enhancements? Top of their head.
I need to update my enhancement to, again, shift everything around.
Yeah, yep.
But yeah, it's like, I think it's just mechanical work at this point. Just updating the version numbers and things like that.
Okay, cool. And you got your answers from, I think I was following that. You got some of the answers from Tim and Jordan. Yep, cool.
Yep. I'm working through that. I don't know anything about API server, so it's been a new learning curve for me. So figuring that out.
I think you're one of the few. So.
Oh shoot! I was hoping there are more people.
I've done some basic changes, but no, it's fun. So.
Okay, I'll post if I start running into trouble.
Cool. Thanks, Dave, for sharing the link to the blog post there. Cool. So we usually take is there any other announcements? Anybody want to share anything? Okay, cool. And then we usually take a minute for any new contributors. Is there anybody new that wants to say hello? No obligation, but you want to introduce yourself and just say hi. We'd love to hear about why you're here and what you're interested in.
Yeah, I'm Dave Schwinn. I was here last week as well. I'm interested in, I've been pursuing how to get the ability to map to a DFS share into Windows container, and that does not currently work. I'm looking at alternatives to using the PowerShell script that the PowerShell commandlet that maps a global SMB mapping that does not support DFS. So I'm just kind of looking for alternatives to that passively in my free time.
Well, welcome and thanks for looking into it.
Thanks.
Cool.
Do we have a, I'm just curious, where would that go if we wanted to file? Oh, now, look, Mike turned his camera on. Now you're my friend, Mike. Look at you, looking good, man. What's up? So
what up?
Do we have anything for how would we file that issue?
CSI
You're trying to
proxy.
map a
I think.
SMB into a container is the problem? Into a persistent volume flex vol thing or something?
Right. So I'm using CSI driver SMB, and I can map sorry, my terminology gets screwed. The persistent volume that represents that share, but once you hit a DFS link in the UNC path, it does not follow that link to whatever server is abstracted with that link. Do you understand what I'm saying there?
Yeah, where would that be a bug? Would that be a bug that we would file on the SMB CSI driver, James?
It's in the PowerShell commandlet.
It's in the PowerShell commandlet that the CSI driver is running.
That's correct. You can reproduce the error without doing it in Kubernetes. You can literally just log on to a Windows server and say, what's the command, new SMB global mapping, and point it to a UNC path that is a DFS route, but that has targets in it. And if you try to go to one of the targets, it fails.
So that PowerShell command, so this is a bug in PowerShell because PowerShell is supposed to natively know how to mount
Yes.
stuff.
Yes.
So do we have a bug that we're pointing to here as SIG-Windows that we can say, hey PowerShell, fix this?
I posted an issue to PowerShell, but I inadvertently did it to the PowerShell core and not the old PowerShell. What's the term for the old and the new? PowerShell core and PowerShell traditional. Do you know what I'm talking
PowerShell.
about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. The terminology just kills me. But
5.0. Like PowerShell.
yeah, I submitted it to the wrong group and they closed it. So I really just need to resubmit that to the Windows PowerShell group, but that's not an open source project, I don't think.
Yeah, so I think there is probably a GitHub. I can try to find it for you and post it in Slack.
Yeah, if you would, I would repost my issue.
Oh,
Yeah.
that'd be great. Yeah, because then we can see if you do that, then we can file a CSI driver issue and we could say this depends on this, and then we can have a chain and we can.
Do we have the influence to make that happen?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Absolutely. I will take care of posting. If you could find me where to put that, I will repost my issue, and we can pound on them because it is a bug in PowerShell and not in anything related to Kubernetes. So.
Well, it's a bug in PowerShell, but like for us, it's also a bug in Kubernetes because if somebody comes along like you and wants to run a Windows pod and you can't do this thing, it's like,
yeah,
what do you care? Like for you, it's a CSI driver bug. Maybe you don't consider it a Kubernetes bug, but
Right. Well, I just dug into it deep enough to know where the problem stems from, and we can go pester those people.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'll try to find that after this meeting.
Really appreciate that. I'll take care of it today if you do that.
Do we want? Okay, so once you file that bug in the GitHub, then we'll file a CSI driver bug on the SMB driver as a tracking issue, right?
Okay.
Cool.
I trust you.
I don't know. I just made that up, but I feel like we won't forget that way, right? Like,
yeah.
James, see, look, James is happy. He's nodding his head.
That makes sense. Just so other people can find it too. I know.
Well, I'm looking to see this through because I have an application where I need to be able to connect to a DFS share. So it's kind of killing me.
This is your first SIG-Windows, thing. This is great.
Well,
welcome.
I'm not afraid to jump into the deep end.
That's what we need. We
need more Daves.
Cool. Well, welcome and thanks for doing that. Is there anybody else that wants to say hi?
David's here. Hey, David.
Yes, hello.
David's my friend. He's from New Hampshire. He's getting into SIG-Windows DevTools and he's trying to run. I don't know. You want to tell him what you're trying to do, David?
Yeah, I was just partitioned down my hard drive or shrunk it. I have a Windows machine, so I just shrunk the hard drive, started going through the SIG-Windows documentation and just installing it on a Ubuntu box, because I just did the dual boot thing on the shrunk partition piece. So it's fresh install of Ubuntu, started following the directions to install, ran into some little bit of errors, so I'm just kind of trying to step through and put together a guide to try to do that similar action to get started quicker. So hit some errors, and now that's kind of where I'm at with it, but definitely interested in taking a look and trying to contribute some helpful guides to just get more people interested in it.
He's trying to get it all up and running from the beginning and the DevTools stuff, but he doesn't have
DevTools,
a.
okay.
He had a Windows.
Yeah, sorry, DevTools.
Yeah, he has a Windows laptop or a Windows machine, and so he's like, "Oh God, how do I do this?" And so his decision was to partition an Ubuntu drive, and I'm like, "Well, if we had that set of instructions, then that we could give people and say, hey, you've got a Windows box, partition it for now, partition it, half of it Ubuntu, use that to boot VirtualBox. Like at least we would have a workflow that we could support for Windows laptops, right? Even though it's not really a Windows workflow, but it's something. So yeah.
Cool. Well, welcome.
Well, David, just so you know, James does the same thing and he works for Microsoft.
Yep. And yep, I work over here at VMware, but yeah, so.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, David. Keep coming back. It's every Tuesday at 12:30.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for letting me know. Sorry I was late.
Yep.
Post in Slack for your questions.
Hey everyone, this is Lakshmi. I'm calling from India. This is my first meeting here, and I work for Pure Storage, Portworx team specifically. We are looking at, personally trying to support Windows with Kubernetes for containers in our solution, which has been predominantly now so far only Linux nodes. We wanted to bring in Windows nodes, and in that aspect, I'm doing investigation to see where we are and what Windows, where currently it is. I've had some luck. I mean, really, tough time trying to set up the infrastructure first to get mixed Kubernetes environment with Linux and Windows nodes. Eventually, I got it working. So really trying to understand where we are and anything that we can, look at from our end. Right now, to support it, I got the CSI driver with iSCSI working, and it's really a POC effort at this point in time. We just have to understand all the things to make it work. So pretty early days, I would say. So just trying to feel where the Windows support is in terms of Kubernetes and anything that we could work on to getting it stable.
Great. Well,
So you have
welcome.
Portworx connecting through a CSI driver on an iSCSI interface, mounting a persistent volume.
Yeah, that is exactly. So Linux nodes will be the storage providers. Windows nodes would run only applications consuming volume from Portworx store.
Cool.
Great.
So, I saw. I mean, sorry. If I were to add, I saw that couple of things. Just trying to clarify. I'm sorry if it has been already said somewhere. Pardon me for that. So I see that for the CSI, this host proxies, host containers, which can be privileged, is coming up and is already supported in 1.2.6. And we earlier had CSI proxy, which allowed through the network sockets to do some privileged actions. So I don't know. Eventually, how do you suppose all these drivers are going to look like? Because I tried with the host containers. I don't know whether I name it right, but I believe we all understand what I'm talking about. So the host. What do they end up is I have issues running privileged commands from host containers. Several other restrictions like pipes cannot be imported, and if some of them are privileged, then all the containers that's part of the pod have to be privileged as well. Several other kind of I would say forced constraints right now, and for some reason I haven't still figured out why. I cannot run the PowerShell commands from within the host privileged containers in Windows. So I turned to actually running those services like Kubernetes directly as the host service, and everything was successful there. So that's how I got the CSI driver up and running right now. So just trying to see whether are there anything that I am missing that is known to you guys that I should be aware here.
So
I'm sorry, very generic
yes.
statement. Yeah, I'm sorry, but just
Yeah, so the CSI proxy has documentation on how to do this if you install it on the host. And then I just linked in the chat the KEP that they've opened to transition to that to using host process containers. And so you can follow that for the official way to do that. I know Mark has gotten host process containers working in CSI proxy using the host process containers. And so you can follow that. I think we have that in our SIG-Windows tools as an example. So yeah, so if you want like the CSI proxy officially says, you know, you have to kind of install it and you install it on the host and you wire it all up directly on the host. And then we did like a prototype where we got it working in host process containers. And then the CSI team, there's a Windows CSI proxy group that you can connect with, and they know that they're trying to move CSI proxy into using host process containers, and so that's the KEP that I linked there.
Right. But on CSI proxy itself, are we? I mean, what's the general consensus? Do we really need them, given that now these host process containers can do privileged operations? Why are we trying to carry that API forward?
Yeah, well, so that's what the KEP outlines. They basically you needed the proxy beforehand to be able to communicate through the containers, and what they want to do is because through that proxy they created a bunch of libraries that do all of the underlying OS stuff, the Windows OS stuff, and they want to be able to move those into the actual provider, like the CSI providers themselves, and provide a Windows library for it. And I might be mangling this a little bit because I'm not super involved in that process, but that is kind of the idea, is that they're going to I think they're going to get rid of the proxy itself and then use the work that they did and turn it into a library that can be implemented by all the other CSI providers.
Okay.
Yeah, I also want to call out that there's also a CSI Windows meeting that happens every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, or sorry, 2 p.m. Pacific time. So Lakshmi, you could even join there. They'll be able to give you, more technical details about the CSI proxy work.
I didn't see that meeting on the list of Kubernetes meetings.
Yeah, so there's a Slack channel, CSI Proxy Windows or CSI Windows or something like that.
Okay.
And you can ask
post
in there
and ask. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
I don't see. Sometimes they come to this meeting, but I don't see any of them today. Cool.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for giving me the platform to talk to you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we can go on to the agenda here. I'm not sure who put this on there, but docs pairing meeting, we had one previously, and I think it fell off. Avren, I think you brought that up in Slack.
Yeah, so this is, I think Mark and I were talking about this. We just wanted to discuss, maybe we could move this to next year, but figure out what to do about that meeting, sort of refocus that. So just something we need to talk about. We could maybe talk about it next year when Mark is also around and there'll be more people.
Okay, cool. Sounds like David might be interested in that as well. And
yeah, I think Mark had a conflict at the time that we had it, so he wanted to figure out a new time, but we should get, like, maybe next year we can figure out a better time.
Okay, sounds good. Cool. And then Windows Q proxy. Jay, do you want to take this one? I know there's a little bit of activity over last week.
Yeah. So okay. So we I have a repo. I've got the code put over there, mostly compiling, and it just has a back end from KPNG, which has a completely separate Windows kubeproxy implementation. And we are mocking out the front end for KPNG and importing the bits for the client so that we can sort of start it in a lightweight way and put a basic, set of instructions in place so people can just run kubeproxy from our own repo that has nothing in it other than just the kubeproxy. And then once that's working, I think we can just delete the code in KPNG and point people to that as the alternative KPNG based kubeproxy. So, but that's not in the repo that Mark put up yet. And Doug Landgraf said he was interested. So I said, okay, Doug, if you're interested, I was like, here, take a week, see if you could figure out how to finish this off. And I'll put the repo in the docs notes. So this is the starting point for it. Where is it? Yeah. So that's it. It's just a starting place. And Doug's looking into the code. If Doug doesn't get it working in the next week, I'll take it over. But I figured I'd give him a few days to look at it. And so we'll have something kind of prototypey that kind of works within a couple weeks, and then I'll probably kind of ask Dave to start poking around with it, and we'll see what to do next. If anybody wants to help with if anybody wants to be a co-maintainer of it and like be a co-owner of the code base and really dig in on it and help, let me know. We'll transfer it to Kubernetes SIG's repo hopefully within a month, right?
Cool. And we did officially create a new repo under Kubernetes SIGs, right?
It's ready? Okay.
Oh, I don't know. I saw an issue open it, but I don't know if we actually created it.
Okay, I'll start.
Yet.
Yeah, I don't think it's closed yet, but
okay.
But the hard part for now is just getting all the code migrated in a way that's lightweight and everything. So, but I think the rest will be pretty easy.
At a high level, I mean, generally asking, trying to understand what's the work put out here. So in Linux, we understand, I mean, at least my understanding is kubeproxy uses IP tables and connection trackers to get things done. Do we have an equivalent here in Windows? You see KPNG spinal cord. Is that something part of the Windows kernel that you are using for the kubeproxy?
Yeah. So if the kubeproxy and the IP tables proxy and the Windows proxy they have similar logic. There's a big, huge function, and that function so there's two things. You have to read all the Kubernetes endpoints. You have to read all the Kubernetes services, right? And then you have to sort of combine them into some kind of a data structure, some kind of in-memory data structure that's easy to calculate diffs against, because you may be making a new endpoint and that endpoint is inside of a service. And you need to now add a new endpoint behind a service, right? And so you need to know, like, is the service already created? And then now this new endpoint, if this service is created, add this endpoint to that service, and so on and so forth. And so you need to know, like, has something changed in the overall state space of Kubernetes network, right? And that involves changes to services, changes to endpoints, changes to topology, addition of new types of, maybe somebody makes a service of type load balancer, maybe somebody changes a service of type cluster IP to a service of type node port, right? There's all these deltas that can happen, right? And so the kubeproxy's job is to constantly reconcile its state of the global state of the Kubernetes network with all these different endpoints at the API server that express those different individual things, right? So, yeah, it's the same logical thing, but with HNS you have to do, it's different because, like, for example, you know, it has to decide, is this a network overlay, and if so, do this, because HNS is the Windows networking subsystem, right? And so it's like, okay, if it's an overlay, do this, create an endpoint this way. If it's not an overlay, create an endpoint some other way. When I first start up, I need to make the HNS device, whatever that is. That's a special thing that you have to do for Windows that you don't have to do for IP tables. So there's like little minor differences in the way that the HNS Windows networking APIs work, because they were built for, you know, IP tables was built as a firewall, and HNS was built for doing virtual networking for virtual machines. And you're taking both of those and hacking them up so that they can run as a as a load balancer for Kubernetes, right? So it's a total different. Yes, it's, you have to do the same types of hacks, but the way that you do those hacks is different, right?
Yeah, and to be clear, this already works. We already have a kube proxy. It's in tree right now, and the work that we're doing right now is to take that from in tree and move it out of tree. We're not re-implementing anything. It all is already there. And Jay's been kind of leading the effort to move that out of tree so that we can move faster and iterate and, you know, be able to contribute a little bit more effectively as a SIG.
Okay.
Yeah, and the way this all started is a guy made a project called KPNG, where he made explicit the stuff I was talking about, where it's like, oh, you need a thing to talk to the API and aggregate that model, and then you need another thing to write backend networking rules. And he separated those things out. His name's Mikhail Clouseau, and that repo is Kubernetes SIG/KPNG. So we started getting that to work with all these different backends, and then somewhere along the way, as SIG-Windows, we're like, well, geez, since this is kind of working outside of the in-tree proxy, what if SIG-Windows had its own kube proxy that was out of tree, and then we could patch it whenever we wanted, we could add features to it, we wouldn't be blocked on other SIGs, and so on and so forth, right? So that's how that whole thing has evolved.
That's great to know. One thing I know, just as a follow-up, I mean, I don't know, I'm thinking it's a follow-up. So the service endpoints, right? So I'm on circling back to something that I have been following up. So two questions I have. One is directly, where is the NFS support in Windows? So we were talking about SMB for shared volumes from Windows, but is there any talk of NFS being supported in Windows natively? NFS v4
I
as
thought
a
there's a
service?
CSI proxy NFS driver, isn't there, James?
I think so.
Is it only v3, not v4? So NFS v4 works out of the box in Windows nodes?
I don't follow the proxy, the CSI side of the world very closely, but I do think there is an NFS CSI driver. So I can quickly look.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, okay.
That's supporting v4. Is this actually backed by the Microsoft team? Because when I tried it, some time back, ran into some issues and we had to give up midway. So is this officially supported by the Microsoft team?
So most of the CSI proxy stuff is developed by the community. And so I think the only ones that Microsoft really contributes very heavily to is the like Azure File and Azure Disk CSI proxies. The rest of them are mostly community driven.
Okay, so this NFS CSI driver is not on Windows nodes, right? This is on Linux nodes, isn't it? I'm cycling back to use Windows nodes here in the context of Windows nodes. I understand in Linux nodes you can provision a NFS server outside and then consumes volumes out of it on Linux nodes. I'm trying to circle it back to Windows node being part of the whole cluster along with Linux nodes, and how sharing of volumes from Linux nodes to Windows can happen. So in that aspect, I'm looking at NFS because that's natively there on Linux and we can export those volumes. And if NFS, if Windows nodes could actually import them and they understand NFS client actions, we should be able to establish an IO path. but I'm not
Yes.
successful on,
So
yeah, on
what
Windows.
what I would suggest is that you join the CSI Windows meeting.
Okay.
If you're not in the Slack already, go ahead
Okay.
and join Slack. Do you know how to join Slack?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
I know.
then so there's a CSI Windows channel. Reach out to them, find out when their meeting is, and they're going to be the ones that are experts in this area.
Okay.
I don't know that we have. I think some of us have set them up, but I don't know that we're the ones developing them and the experts here. So I would reach out to them and join their meeting, and they're going to probably be able to answer a lot, the questions a lot more easily than we will.
Okay. See, the other question I had was service endpoints that we see. I see iSCSI is supported on Windows. I mean, it's there. But can we export the the volume through a service endpoint to the Windows nodes, and can we let the the iSCSI target that's part of the Windows nodes move in case the node fails, and still IO path will be okay? So is this accepted form of deployment from Windows nodes in Kubernetes environment?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if anybody else does here.
Oh, okay. So where should I be, talking about this? Again, CSI Windows.
That's
okay.
That's where I would go.
Okay.
Arvind, do you know anything here?
Yeah, I've posted some links that Lakshmi, you can read it, but I'm with James on this. I think the best place for all this is Slack. You should start some threads on the CSI Windows, and they would be able to like direct you in the right direction.
Okay. Great. Yeah, I have no further questions at this point. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, he dropped a few notes in the meeting chat there, so check those out. And we're about 5 minutes past time, so nothing else. We'll see you all in the new year. Remember, there's no meeting next 2 weeks.
Happy holidays, folks.
Yep. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Yeah. Take care. Bye.
See y'all.